Happy New Year. Tonight we're going to have a little bit of fun. One of my favorite things to do is to tie steelhead flies. It's pretty much what I do. If I'm not tying for either A videos or anything else like that. Steelhead flies are what I tie. It's 99.9% of my day if I'm at my bench. So tonight we're going to be talking about a D fly. I'll explain that to you. A married wing fly, kind of explain that to you. And then by request we're going to be tying a gray ghost as well. It's an old school cool streamer pattern that I think is awesome. Hey Steve, Happy New Year, buddy. So I think tonight what we'll do is we'll start it off with, and I'm going to try to stay pretty close to the pictures and the recipes. Reason being is just because that's like the right thing to do. But steelhead tying is really probably my favorite because it allows room for interpretation. It allows you to do your own thing, adapt, make things cool, etc. So we'll jump in up close here, and I'm in a new area. I've built a new desk this year, away from like where I operate on a day-to-day level. So it's kind of cool. I'm in this little alcove. But we'll zoom in here. We'll start talking about some steelhead flies. Ethan, Happy New Year. Michael, Happy New Year. Try to get this queued up as good as possible, gentlemen. Anybody going to any fun shows this week at all? Isn't the big, awesome Denver show coming up, I guess? So, alrighty. Here it is. This is the fly from the picture. And this is technically called a D fly, just because it has a specific style of wing to it. As you can see, the wings are tented, but they're tented out and away from the body of the fly. It's a really cool look. It's very, very buggy. What I'm using here for a hackle is just some schlappen. There's any number of materials I could talk to you about and explain to you. And this is a big guy. You know, when you look at it compared to, say, a bobbin, and this is a larger bobbin. This is a 3/0. So where I'm usually fishing stuff like this is during the winter, but on lower water situations. I don't mind, you know, throwing some of this big stuff. It's actually really fun. So Clark asked me if this is a bluegill fly. Absolutely. This actually represents the back of a crawdad in the molting form, and really brings them in. They have no issues eating this size 3/0. Good question, Clark. I like it. So a lot of the hooks that I'm using for my steelhead flies that are not shank flies and stuff like that are going to be the Daiichi's, and it's the 2051. It's the Alec Jackson hook, and it seems to be my favorite. Michael says he's been in bed for almost a month. Oh no! That's not good. I hope you get better, Michael. Let's see, Max says there's an iron fly in a couple of weeks down the street from his house. You should enter. It is a fun contest to do. So I tend to bury these 3/0s pretty deep in the vise, and the reason for that is it's a big hook, and I don't want them to move around. Tonight I am using my standard Vivus 50D, and I don't know why, I just absolutely love this stuff. Squeaky bobbin, make everybody happy, unsqueak it really quick. So what my trick is, and I think it's just more standard, it's what I have been taught and I've learned, is I start my fly where the thread touches the hook point. And that is where we're going to start building the body of our fly and doing that kind of stuff. For my tail, what I'm going to be using here is a small. This is a Vivus oval tinsel. And I'm not really shy with it. So now if you notice on these hooks there's a return eye. What I like to do is try to line up as much of my materials there so the symmetry of the fly actually stays the same. Again, right, wrong, happy, sad, whatever it may be. This is what I've picked up and watched from videos and stuff like that. It's not perfect with this body. That's really going to be fine. And for this, we're just going to start wrapping backwards until we select our tag length, keeping in mind where we started. Oh, Michael, you're getting a fly tester. I think you're going to have fun with that, man. Everybody I know who has either purchased one or concocted one on their own, they absolutely love them. It's really a fun thing to play with. So what I'm going to do with this oval tinsel in this beginning segment is I'm going to create a tag. And now the tags can be multicolored, they could be a single color tag. It's really up to you. It's your pattern. For this one I'm going to be keeping it just as a single. Next up, a lot of these flies have, they're very ornate. And my philosophy on it is there's a ton of guys who get very serious about, being specific to an older pattern or whatever it is. I just do whatever I find. I mean, I've got piles of fun materials on the desk and I'm like, how would this look? How would this fish? And that's about what I do when I'm playing with these. So I'm like, hey, this looks really cool. I'm going to fish this. So don't be, like any fly tying, don't be held down by, what an original recipe says. You got to do, with steelheading especially, you have to do what you have the most confidence in. Or the fly your friend tied you and he's like, dude, you're going to stick one on that one. And you're like, oh, okay. That's another good rule of thumb to follow. Just like whatever your friend says is like the best fly ever. I have lots of friends that we trade flies and fish each other's flies, and when you catch a fish, it's pretty awesome. My golden pheasant, this is a little golden pheasant crest. You can see there, it goes in nicely. Why did I cut that goofball? So I'm just going to reattach this. Like I said, on this pattern it doesn't matter. It's when you get into more of the ornate thread bodies using flosses and such that this actually starts to matter. So I'm going to take some chartreuse Angora goat. As you guys can see, it's a nice bright green color. Yeah, they're very open to interpretation. I bet, Michael, it's funny, I've been trying to cram as much of my steelhead stuff onto trout hooks lately. And, it's kind of like guys tying size 28 copper johns. It's my variation of that. And you know what? Fish eat them. Little tiny mallard tinted wings and stuff like that. And it works out really well. So traditionally, there's like some mythical creature called a spaycock that came from the River Spey that had this magical hackle that was like shot and eaten into extinction. And everybody's been trying to replicate said critter for X number of years, since guys were fishing like old Y rods that were plain wood and stuff like that. Interpret only if you want. Or if Cheech says so. Police knocking at your door. Cheech claims that I'm doing it wrong. Per the manual, page 3589, section 3, part II. Thanks, Cheech. So there's two different things that I use. These are just this is a cocktail and it's like a giant schlappen feather, as you can see. It's very webby, very buggy. The other material that I like to use quite a bit is schlappen. This just happens to be an orange one from Hairline. But as you can see, it's got these really, really great long fibers. And it's got a very fine stem, so it's going to work out really well. An ADOT WD-40. Dude, that might work out. I don't know. That could be. I'd try it. Could probably throw it in front of a Mako once it's been taunted in with bait and go from there. So what I do is I pick a side that I'm going to work with. It's, for me, my palmering. I'm a righty, so I palmer clockwise. I'm sure lefties do it the same way. So I just peel off half my stem, and you can see all I'm left with is a progression of very webby materials. Max says size 34 Cheech leeches is where it's at. I like it. So what I do is I cut a small V-notch, and I'm going to just thoroughly wrap this down and make sure that it doesn't come out. The small oval tinsel is in the back for a counter rib. Steelhead do have teeth. You know, you don't want it to get tore up. I have no idea what my kids are doing. If you guys hear them, I'm sorry. They're small savages. I think they have my wife hostage at this point. Taped up in the corner. So, next up, and this is just what I'm into, I'm going to use like an olivey brown Angora goat. That would be very, very true. Cheech says 34 is a little bit small. He draws it at 32s. Nice. Anybody in the Colorado area going to the Denver show? Cheech is offering to sign your chest for free, as long as you post it on Instagram. So I really like to kind of just build this Angora in there. Signing Cheech up for work. If Cheech goes, just have him sign your chest. He'll do it. He should have Loon calendars on hand to sign as well. Whoa. So I've progressed this pretty far forward here. And then there's half the stuff I'm working with. That's alright. Alright, those guys are done. Cool. You know, it's fine to leave a little bit of an eye up here. A lot of guys like to do that. Some guys don't bring it all the way forward. So next up, what we're going to do is we're just going to simply palmer this hackle, and I like to give it a solid, like a good spacing behind it. Maybe about a little less than a 1/4 inch on these bigger patterns in between my turns. Oh, Cheech says he's going to do signings in SLC, Salt Lake. But nonetheless, they'll be able to get, you know, your signature, Cheech, right on their chest, on the man's ear. It'd be pretty solid. It's too bad there's not one in Florida. I'd love to see what Nick Davis would do with that. I have faith in him to be completely ridiculous. As much as I do you, Cheech. So what I'll do is I try to stand this stuff up just as much as possible here. And you can rib either way that you want to. I don't really care. I just counter rib most of the time. Getting stuff stuck in there, just work it out. You can also use really creative stuff like GSPs to counter rib if you don't want more flash added into your pattern. Or you can follow along. And they get, the longer they get, the more unruly they get. Cheech, you have a question on line 1. Cheech, line 1. Are you going to the Great American Outdoor Show? So a lot of times I'll actually do the ribbing with the same thread, the Vivus, just because I don't want to see that much gold on my patterns. But we'll get that tied in there. Kind of pick out anything that you've gotten stuck. You can bug out the pattern more, you can brush it. You know, sky's kind of the limit here. Next up on these guys is going to be just a mallard flank. Looks like a So next up is just going to be this is a barred mallard flank, and this one's dyed wood duck. Comes out of a big, huge bag. It's one of my faves. And again, I'm just gonna. I don't want it to be too heavy, too thick. So what I do is I strip off half. We're gonna palmer that up here up front. And these guys, I do take the time and I just double them back over. I will trim it out because it doesn't belong. We have to heckle Aaron because this was his request. And then he doesn't even show up. So he's on the list right now. It's on the bad list. Even though he has other plans, I'm sure. We'll put him on the naughty list for next year. So we just get these guys splayed out. And I like to bring them down. What's a good beginner's reference for steelhead flies? A lot of the stuff that we're doing with this pattern can play out a different way. You could use a multitude of different materials. You don't have to do this full body hackling. You can do like partial stuff. Stuff like Senyo's book's a good jumping off point, yeah. Steve asked me if it's a flea comb. It is. It's a great choice, flea comb. I have no idea where it came from. I just found it in my move and changing of the office. I've misplaced half of my gear. So yeah, I mean, any of the basic stuffs like polar shrimps, tiger's paws, purple perils, green butts, skunks, mostly hair wings, and featherwing stuff seems to be like a really great jumping off point for steelhead swing flies. If you like one of the other things that I swing a lot on certain rivers, say like the Rogue, Trinity, Klamath, even on the Deschutes, the places where the steelhead may be held up for a lot longer period, I'll fish a lot of really buggy, earthy tone stuff like big size 6 soft hackles. So I wouldn't even count those out as steelhead flies. Hey, Sergi. James, welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it. So yeah, for the wing for this, what I'm going to be using is a cinnamon tip turkey tail. And they might not use this specific one because it's really close to Corey Bastard. But so there's going to be left and rights towards the tip of some of them. You're going to see that they have really killer symmetry, and you can go through some really different looking materials. So you can see I have a speckled to a brown to a white tip. So you can kind of get some really cool variations. What I do is I come in here and cut off about, just a hair over a 1/4 inch. Okay. And if there's any offenders that you can't, we'll talk a little bit more about zipping feathers together a little bit later. So when you're looking at the feather, you always want to address the feather with the top up. The bottom of the feather is more concaved, and it has more of a protruding stem to it, if that makes sense. So as you can see, that kind of goes away, and then you can see that stem. For me with these, the left is the right, so this is going to be my right, this is going to be my left. It is very opposite when you're marrying wings. So most importantly, you want them to match as much as possible. And my trick is these guys have a little bit different tip coloration, which is, it doesn't bother me. It's a fishing fly. I'm not tying this for a display or anything like that. So as you can see, they have a cool curvature to them. You can get in there and you can play with them. You can put bends in these feathers so that they can lay lower, or once you measure it out and you're like, cool, there's my tail, I want it to sit lower, you can come in here and you pinch and you just pull straight down. It does look like a really fancy turkey fan, Ethan, you're right. I need to find some friends that go to Mexico and hunt really cool turkeys, because I don't hunt really cool turkeys for a living or have the time to. And once they get together, you can see they come back in and they'll start to tent out. I do dig that. And I'm just going to set them over the top. Now once I have them kind of in place, I'm going to take 2 wraps and just allow them to sit. I can start to look at them, and I didn't like the way that they sat. This guy's kind of trying to roll on me here just a little bit. That far guy's collapsing pretty heavily. That's random. So sometimes they don't set. You set them too many times, they don't look right. So what I do in that case is go ahead and pop in some new guys. And you can, once they're in here and they're kind of set, you can start to play with them a little bit, move them around. If you want to see somebody who kills it at this, and is basically my arch nemesis of married wing tying, go watch Davey McPhail. The guy's like throws in mallard wings like it was, you know, no big deal. Like, oh, I'm just going to put a little mallard wing in here. He's like, it's done. And you're like, really? Because I burnt through like 6 mallard wings trying to get one to set the way I liked it. Little crunch over there. Like I said, it's a fishing fly. It's totally fine. Oh, Michael says he's on the edge. Yeah, exactly. Tires 0. Wings are like that, though. You'll notice, like, all of a sudden, you find the right section of the feather, or whatever it is, and you get lucky, and life becomes really good. So I just throw in a simple whip finish. You can try to re-zip these guys, but you get that really cool D look. This one's got a little collapse in it. One thing I really like with the turkey and with this brownish schlappen is that it just has a cool iridescent property to it. Probably really good just to darken that up, but I'll finish it later. Don't have my pen with me. Yeah, the guy is definitely a savant of like steelhead, married wing, traditional stuff. But yeah, there you go, just a little D, fish it, kind of dig the white tips on it. Real buggy, sparse, cool pattern to fish, really fun. Man, these things get thrashed in boxes. So next up is just going to be our little tent-winged low water pattern. And I'm going to be tying this guy 1.5. Let's do a 1.5. So yeah, dude, that guy is, I don't know, man. He's got some sort of like secret superpower. I can't even explain it to you. It's amazing. You're right, Cheech. I could not agree with you more. So cool. So this guy's going to be a little bit smaller, more of a fall pattern, summer pattern. For those of you who are lucky enough to still have solid summer steelhead runs. And this one really lends itself more to getting away from traditional materials in there. Thanks, Clark. I appreciate it. So my tag, I'm going to have a multi-layered tag on this fly. And it's going to be consisted of some hollow tinsel from Vivas in a medium red, and some body quill from Vivas in it's BQ8, aka brown. And body quill is just a fun little material. It lays down incredibly flat and really light, and it may not do a lot, but on this pattern specifically, but it makes really killer bodies for soft tackles. I've been using it. So next up is just going to be our hollow tinsel. It all just takes let's see. Makes me think they're easy. They are easy after you tie like a ton of them. They become easier, I find. It's like anything, like shooting, riding a bike, everything. It's like all time involved, I guess you would say. Um, James asks, how do I like the Vivus line? I really enjoy it. I won't, I'm not like gonna tell you it's the only thing to ever use. It is just my favorite at this point in time. The 50 denier thread is, I'm tying 6-inch intruders all the way up to or down to, I'd say, size 20 stuff on it. So it's really good. The power threads, I like them. I'm sure Clark can interject. He's played with them. They might be a little bit slicker than some of the other stuff out there, but it is very strong. But everything else, their tinsel's way stronger. They're French tinsels. I swear this is on like a Dyneema core because you have to have good scissors to cut through it. It doesn't break down like other stuff that I've played with, and so it's good stuff. It has, everything has its place, time, and event, and for me it's usually just 50D and a Sharpie. But hopefully that answers your question. I'm obviously a fanboy. So we have a bigger tag on here, and I'm wrapping back over this just to get back. As you can see, it doesn't need to be super huge. My body quill. I do love my body quill, you're right. I know. I don't want to drop these. These look really good. So we're in the tail section. We build these little tags, and I'll show you that. You have like these little palms and crazy stuff. So this is just really ostrich, and it maybe is a little bit more intimidating. And this is actually peacock, or a pheasant. I'm sorry. So when I'm working with my golden pheasant skins, and this skin will come into play a few times on this, just because I really like these side feathers here. They're a lot like the rump, except for the rump on the golden pheasant is golden color. So my tail actually comes from, and I'll throat the fly with this as well. It comes from like the saddle, and what I do is I pop in here and I just get like a little one that maybe gets overlooked a few times by people tying with golden pheasant because they want it for say GPs or something like that. But you can see it has a really cool iridescent quality, a lot like a peacock would. And we'll be right back. Body Quill and I are going to get a room. So what I do is I just stab the heart out of it, and I'll fold it over upon itself. It's a little much. So you can strip it back. Kind of the same trick that you would do if you were doing legs and you wanted them to be the same. I just bring all my tips together, and you can see I get like a nice little tip segment here. And it's going to stand up, it's going to be iridescent, it's going to look different. I love it. So this is our peacock plume, and unlike what most guys are buying these days for steelhead tying, this is jumbo. This probably like goes in a pimp hat or something, from a Halloween costume. That's the kind of peacock quills that I'm using here. You want to tie it again with the curved side down because you're going to be wrapping it forward with the quill right in front. Get it to rotate over. So it's funny, like the pattern that has me the most worried this evening is actually the Gray Ghost, because I really am horrible at the proportions on it. Kind of weird and goofy, but And I'll wrap back over that stem just a little bit, just to give myself that little pompadour, if you will. Yeah, I think everybody kind of has their like own style for what everything is. It's kind of weird between all the thread companies. It's a weird thread game. So some of these materials you can replace. Some of them I get at garage sales, to be honest with you. You know, like see a fishing pole stop and you find, you know, old hammered. This is just a hammered metal tinsel. It's pretty old. It's copper. I'm surprised it wasn't tarnished. And this is going to be our body for this fly. There's, you know, I'm sure guys are working on replacing what was originally out there, which was a lot of Largitons, and you know, hopefully soon we'll have those replacements. Things you could replace it with, you could just use a straight, you know, copper, like, you know, copper tinsel and stuff like that. So there are replacements available. Oh, Ethan, how are you missing American Idol? I was hoping that Jack won. I don't even know if Jack's on the American Idol, but that's awesome. Appreciate you being here. Let's see. So this is a, and you can vary this up. This is just a French tinsel in small copper as well, Vivas. I haven't taken it apart, but and again, I won't do this with my flats, but anything that I'm running the whole distance of the body, I try to bring it back from that return die. If anybody remembers why the eyes are like this on these hooks, for which knot it was meant to be tied with, extra bonus points. Let's see what we got in here. So again, we're going to use some big, actually let's see if we can't like weird it out and get weird in here. So here's a great little thing that I like. This one's dyed kind of a yellow, but this is Coq de Leon, and it makes a really, Ethan says Snell knot. No. Actually, one of the only people that I've ever seen tie it is the Hazels up at Deschutes Angler. They do, it's one of the knots that they use for guiding. So these are just some Coq de Leon sections. And you can see they're really long, they have a fine stem, and they lend themselves really well to spay tying. I'm actually going to use this. But you can see it has that cool deer. So it has a really cool modeling, and it's going to create a really cool taper. It'll be really light for this pattern, which is kind of what we're after. Whoa, a little bit too heavy there. Kind of goofed that one up just a little bit. Alrighty. So now the secret here is to separate your base material from everything else. Start working it forward. And I just go back-to-back wraps on this to create this style of body. And I will obviously over figured what I'm up to here. And I'm just going to bring this all the way up deep into the bend, or past where the bend is. Riffle knot? No. Alright, so we have some good guesses, but it's the turtle knot. Alright, so save any of your scraps of some of the stuff you find at garage sales. It's very important. And I'm just going to bend this guy back, just like we were palmering anything. A little moisture never hurts. Oh, no. Dang, that was bad. This stuff's a little fragile. Let's see, I'll tie it in. We'll fix that. And you want to space these guys out pretty good. As far as it'll let you is my style with these. So now what we'll do is we'll come in and we'll brush all this forward again. We'll just chase through, going over them, working around them as best as possible. Alter your colors here, do everything like that. I know, right? It's always after you get like the whole body thrown in there and it's going to blow up on you. Show you a trick. So back here where the offender was, flow it out. They'll never see it. Plus it's wrapped underneath all of that tinsel. You haven't even heard my singing voice yet, Chris. It's amazing. So I'm going to take some of these side feathers off of the golden pheasant. I really like to add some red accents in on this guy. I didn't know you guys had cable or internet in Canada. Okay, so we'll get this guy zinged in there. So you can see we're starting to get pretty buggy. Because this Coq de Leon is so light, it's really cool. You could also use pheasant rumps in like every color that they make them in. It also makes a great replacement. You have to use some of the better ones, but you know, sometimes you might have to use two. Clark asks, what resin do I prefer to use? Chris says he has internet. He's running a generator. That is awesome. Now that is dedication, Mr. Hockley. Oh man, that's killer. So I kind of like Loon's resins. I'm a little bit partial to them. The the guy that like designs that stuff, he's cool. He does a good job, I guess. Great question. So I'm going to take some of that neck feather again and just, you know what, let's use some of this shorter stuff. I'm going to bring it in just a little bit shorter. We're just going to use a few turns out of this just to vary it up, add some more color again. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. Alrighty. Cool, we don't want to do too much up here. Keep the head somewhat small. So I kind of think of this pattern as being a crawdad, or very earthy and organic. Most of my smaller stuff typically is. You know, sometimes I get into the weird, goofy hot pinks and such like that. So we're going to do a goose shoulder wing. You can see we're going to do kind of a maroon one, or at this point in time. So again, same rules apply to, you know, your inside. You want to cut one way or the other. Michael says, we've replaced Matt's Loon with CCG. Let's watch. That's funny. So what I like to do is I keep my two sides separate, and we're going to throw a black top on it, just a little tiny guy, I guess, maybe. Just to be different. So all wing feathers, they zip back together, which is pretty cool. And what I do is, if they're of varying lengths, I just get them lined up where I want them, and we'll start zipping them back together. So you can see they create a two-toned wing. Yeah, you got to look at your source there, Max. You got to, or Mike. Yeah, Max. You got to look at your sources here. So we'll do the same thing. So I can show you what I'm doing here. Just start tapping it. It's like a zipper, and I'll work it till it's pretty darn as good as I'm going to get it, I guess. How long have I been broadcasting? Only 50 minutes? Wow. It's the longest Spayflies I've tied in a while. Okay, so when they're right, you can see they kind of tent up. You're going to figure out, you know, I want them to be here. Then what I do is I'll just press all this other business kind of out of the way, best as possible. And again, I'm going to put our 90-degree bend in it. And this one, I'm going to go, you can see I'm locking the thread right now into my fingers. Then we can start playing with these, just adjusting them. before they're in tight. Little collapse, but nothing too horrible there. So I'm going to pinch them as hard as I can and wrap them down. And then you're going to have a pretty cool, it's a pretty big wing, but you can see it's really well tinted. And oh, I have this new toy I wanted to play with. I don't know where I've done with it. I got a cautery pen. Let's see. What Folgers crystals I get. It's not moose fat, it's beaver fat. Gives much better transmission. So we'll go ahead and finish this guy down. I'm going to try to get in there and see if I can't clean up some of this little front fluff here before too long. A little bit bigger on the head wraps than I normally like, but it's under pressure, bright lights, kind of sketched out. So, it is what it is. So hopefully you guys go out and just start like terrorizing. Now you can kind of primp your fly. Terrorizing local geese for their wing plumes. Swans, if you're lucky enough to find swans. If you're Canadians, you might as well just go whack a few polar bears and, you know, tie with heron and all the original cool stuff that you guys get up there, because you're not an American anymore. Thanks, James. I've had a class on marriage of feathers. All of mine are divorced. So really cool when you guys pick these out. Thanks, Clark. Thanks, Steve. So when you pick these guys out, you know, you want to find them. Sometimes you'll find them symmetrical. Sometimes you'll have either a left or a right. The more symmetrical ones, you know, they're probably lesser in packaging, but that's okay. Now, if you look, let me see if I can get this here. If you see this feather, you see this weird guy coming off. Now, you can try to re-zip it, and, you know, it might look okay, but if you get a feather that's completely thrashed, it's been in a bad package or anything like that, if you have a tea kettle at home, and you take your feather and you put it over the tea kettle, and then once it's been moistened and steamed, much like you would iron wrinkles out of a shirt going to a job interview or whatever, then you can much more easily come back in and repair this feather. And it works for mallard, it works for everything. And you can get them to lay really, really flat. It's just kind of a, you know, it's just a good trick to keep in the arsenal. Ethan asks, what flies use polar bear? You know, it's really crazy. Traditionally, prior to the ban of polar bears, you know, unless you have a CITES approved bear skin lying around, there are shops that have it, so it is still very obtainable in America. You just have to find shops and people that deal with it and have the right paperwork. So a lot of traditional hair-wing steelhead flies, they could have used polar bear. Saltwater flies, striper flies, you know, bonefish patterns, they all, yeah, little minnow patterns, everything like that. It's really an adaptable fiber. Its under fur is really amazing. You know, so the Angora goat on this is really actually more of a replacement. A lot of people used to use seal's fur. Obviously, this is a less, you know, dangerous version of that, for the seals at least. So, yeah, just a little buggy tent wing beast there. But yeah, you know, so it's really just an adaptable material. So yeah, this thing's up next. This is the Grey Ghost. Mine is horrible. I'm horrible. Gray Ghost. So we're going to take that out of the vise and hope that the next one's much better. So, cool. So the Daiichi 2370 is the hook I was hoping to have gotten. They did not show up. Another cool hook that you could use this. This is also great for it's a D/streamer hook. This is a Daiichi 2271. I told my friend he has, he's a good garage sailor. So he found this box, and it looks to be like from the 40s of these old, awesome hooks. No model number, just a box of cool hooks. And it said long shank. So the 2370 has a returned eye. It's like a Bartlett bend, but this is a very, very old hook. It looks to me like a mustad styled hook, but it's what I'm going to tie. So, did somebody say dinner? Oh man, that sounds good to me too, Mr. James. So we're going to tie the Gray Ghost here. And this, this pattern, this was a requested pattern, so I'm stoked to tie it, and it's a cool one. It's a really cool old pattern. It's a streamer, you guys were probably stripping this thing back in the day. It's supposed to emulate a bait fish, probably a sunfish or something. My history is not up on the Gray Ghost. So we just have a flat tinsel, golden color. You can use hammered, whatever you might have kicking around. We're going to do a gold tag. A lot of times you can actually just wind down and back for your tag too. You don't have to, tie it back in there. So this is just like a small or medium gold tinsel. And this pattern does not have a lot of room for interpretation. So this is just an orange floss. It's a single ply in orange. And the way I do my floss, I just get it in there, and I don't like taking the time to build the bodies and be really perfect. I don't think this is one of those flies with the most perfect floss bodies ever, but we'll just wrap up forward. You don't want to crowd the head. There's a lot going on at the head of this fly. Yeah, if you, seals are obviously endangered and protected, Max, but if you ever go to the Columbia and where it meets the Deschutes or half the dams and fish hatcheries, or, you're up in Portland and you're on the Willamette or the Clackamas and your fish gets throttled by a seal, they like freshwater too. And there's lots of them. Out here on the West Coast we have such an abundance of seals that they actually hang out at the fish ladders waiting for salmon and steelhead so they can just eat them and prey incredibly easy. Because those fish just want to go and spawn. It's kind of an interesting, weird management scenario they're working on, or not. So I'll leave myself a little bit of room to do some of the work up front here. And you can see it just has a nice smooth floss body. We're going to come in and you just palmer in. And I don't know if there's a specific numbers of wraps. I really just looked at a picture and decided we were going to tie this fly. I'm always really curious, how some of this old stuff would fish. So, Cheech, you need to start tying some 7x long single non-articulated streamers and throw them for all those carnivorous fish you hang out with. I think that'd be pretty fun. So, we're doing some weird stuff. We've talked about, we had a question about a polar bear. Now here's one of my favorite white winging materials, if you guys can figure it out. He's just got a fun little face. And it's skunk. And it's around. You could use bucktail here. You could use a synthetic. I greatly enjoy the translucent nature of the skunk fur. There's both black and white on it, so you can dye it and do all sorts of fun stuff. I just probably really like bringing out my skunk hide. Well said, Clark. So I try to bring the belly. So this is going to be the belly of our pattern. I try to bring it, I try to bring it back into the bend of the hook. We're just going to secure this down really thoroughly. It's interesting, Ethan, when you get them tanned. I don't know what they do with these skunks or how they get these, but they don't have any smell left to them. They're really cool for collaring intruders, and been seeing more and more fly shops with skunk hides. But the cool thing is look at the length of the tail fibers here. If you guys have watched. Steve says he clips some of his border collie. Don't tell PETA. I don't know. My favorite thing to do is show up at demos with some green marabou hanging out the back end of that and just tell everybody it's my green butt skunk. So this is going to be just a little golden pheasant crest, which lends me to believe this was to imitate bluegill or something else, kind of more bait fishy than anything. So we worked that guy in there. You can see you just get a nice little crest coming down of kind of a throat, orange, yellow, gold throat. Remember, not a lot of synthetics back in the day when they were doing this stuff. For our lateral line, instead of running a Flashaboo or something like that, like we do today, they used peacock. Great material. Still used to this day on tons of saltwater flies. And I'm just going to pull out 4 of them. The cool thing is they never have good tips on them, so it doesn't. You're just kind of matching up lengths, if you will. My kids are deaf. We have a skunk that frequents our backyard, so my kids are scared to death of the skunk. So every once in a while, if it's dark in a room and I can obtain this skunk, or they're coming up the stairs, it makes a special guest appearance at the house, just straight to their face or something. Good screams. Probably not the best dad move ever, but it's fun for me, at least. So for our wing, we're just going to use some gray saddle hackle. This is a strung Chinese saddle hackle. It comes in every color. And I'm just going to look for as many like feathers as possible. I want them to have a little bit of a point to them. Those are cool. That one's in. That one's cool. So what I do is I just try to match them up to create my wing. I'm going to measure them. Come in. I'm going to do 4, so I'm going to do them 2 at a time. And I'm going to take my curved edges, and those are going to go on the inside. What I do is I strip just a little bit off the bottom, so it's going to sit flat against it'll sit flat against the top of the fly here. You just want to try to get them in nice and flat. We'll do the same thing with the other guys. Absolutely, Clark. Yeah, raccoon and possum both are just tremendous critters to deal with and to get to tie with. It comes into a lot of steelhead tying. Like, I have quite a few raccoon hides that I've dyed and done other modifications to. So we'll bring in our second set of wing here, and that's sitting pretty darn flush. They are dirt cheap right now. Yeah, there's a lot of cool feathers to be had. There's quite a few people that I know that have like friends that do they have like parrots and stuff, and some of their feathers are amazingly cool looking. So for our cheeks, to bring this guy out of his bag, this is George the silver pheasant. We're going to be using some silver pheasant. And I like to take my silver pheasant for these kind of right here. There's a little zone on the back if you're looking at my back. If you have it strung in a saddle, that's totally awesome too. It'll work just as well. It's a little bit easier, more easily obtained, I guess you would say. I just have like this weird fascination with buying whole animal skins, and then I name them. It's best because my wife actually like learns their names. So with these guys, what we're going to do is we're just going to measure up the size, and you can just pull them back that you want to make, and this is going to represent our gill plate. At least my interpretation of what the gill plate is on this fly. So we'll make this guy have a little bit tighter, smaller gill plate. Cheech, do you have a separate tying zone for when you're doing videos? I just set mine up, and it's pretty much the best thing I think I've ever dealt with right now, not having it on my creation station. I'm just curious what you're up to, buddy. So there you go. You get these cheeks. We're going to trim off the fronts here. And these come pre-packaged, and they're really, really good feathers as well. I have like every color, like Skittles. For various steelhead patterns. Why doesn't that? Oh, okay. So this pattern uses jungle cock. If you don't have it, there's tons of substitutes out there. Hairline makes some pretty cool ones. It's the real fake jungle cock eyes. You could, like, if you got red ones, you could be putting in different colors and stuff like that. Dude, that's like kind of an honor, Clark. I'm not gonna lie, Cheech. I'm super stoked if I can be, I don't have anything named Cheech, so maybe I'll have to do that. Pay you back somehow. But yeah, if you have a raccoon and you name it Matt and you talk about it on your videos, I'd be pretty stoked. So what we'll do is I'll set our eyes in here, my side first. It's a tough question. I mean, there's a lot of guys that don't dig the false stuff, but really, you know, just want to use the real stuff. But it's really hard to find. Like good quality, you know, stuff without too big of splits in it or non-split is pretty darn tough. Alrighty. And that is my variation of a gray ghost, I guess. We'll just do our whip finish up front here. So nice. Thanks, James. I appreciate it. So, and of course, I'd, you know, color that black and finish her out. But I have no idea where I put my Sharpies in my move. And why it is that way. Cool. Yeah, so that's kind of it for our show today. Matt the Raccoon. Oh, boy. Yes. So next time, I know we had some more requests. One of the things that we're going to be tying is Jerry French's camo squid, or, you know, we're going to tie some OPST patterns on request. So I think I have room for one more if there's anything anybody would like to see, you know. Otherwise we'll throw in some trout bugs, another maybe really technical fly and a more basic fly. Some still water midges or something. Forget to shave this morning. I probably haven't shaved in a few days. I'm not a huge fan of shaving, to be honest with you, Ethan. Bob, thank you. So, Michael, thank you. So yeah, if anybody has anything they really want to see, you can either blurt it out here right now or shoot us an email, matt@loonoutdoors.com. But otherwise, we might do some springtime trout bugs to accompany. Bob, we just did the gray ghost, isn't it? Isn't that what I did? I hope it's what I did. Maybe I did something wrong. I don't know. I thought that was the gray ghost that I did. But yeah, I will check it out, and we'll go from there. As always, I appreciate it, guys. So we'll tune in to you guys, or you'll tune in hopefully in a few weeks, and we'll talk to you then. As always, I appreciate it. Take care. Have a good night.
Crack.